Hello to everyone. We're delighted that you could join us today, and we are very excited to be sharing the updating training materials with all of you. So I don't actually anticipate that the webinar is going to take our entire hour. There'll be plenty of time for questions, so we might actually help you find some time today. So as Megan mentioned, we've basically got a package of materials to use as certified POM trainers, and today is really just a high-level overview. Once you get access to everything and you've got time to kind of play around, you might have more questions. We certainly have questions today that we can answer. If you have questions later, please send an email, give me a phone call. If we have enough questions, we may create a FAQ if that would be useful to folks. So there are basically, we talk about 4 components to the trainer's materials for the POM workshop. We've got the workbook, we've got a PowerPoint, we've got a trainer's agenda, and then a link to some resources on the website. And we're going to take a look now at each of those a little bit more closely. So the trainer's workbook is a hard copy product that you can see there on the screen. I just want to share that there's no fundamental changes to the workshop. It's really upgrading and packaging in a way that will be more useful, we hope. So one of the changes is, though, that previously in the previous workbook, the PowerPoint slides were actually in the publication. We have taken those out of the publication so that if changes are needed to be made, we can do that and easily update the PowerPoint and share that with you without having to reprint books or make changes. So that is a substantial change from the previous book that you might notice. So this is the table of contents for that workbook. Again, not any substantial changes, updates, we hope improvements. So the same sorts of things, the factors and indicators are there, the process that one goes through to become a certified trainer, the preparation checklist for the workshop, sample agenda, a section of activities, and we'll look at those in a little bit more detail, tips and tools, guidelines, getting prepared, some documents, some thoughts about different schedules you might use, and then finishing off with the requirements that you have as a trainer to keep that sort of in front of you. When we'll get to the end of this and talk about how you will access it, but all of you will get one free hard copy of this publication. So the activities, again, not major changes. There are a couple of changes. You'll see that we have the coin instead of the penny. And in the workbook, it talks about that. We have folks using this workshop around the world, and not everyone has pennies. So it talks about using the coin that is relevant to the country in which you find yourself. So that's the same activity. And then we did take out the Q-tip exercise or activity. You're certainly still welcome to use that. It was one of those things that people either really loved it or they really hated it. And there was enough feedback of people who really weren't fond of it, so we ended up taking it out. As I said, you're welcome to use that if it works well for you, if you're one of the folks who really enjoyed that. So that workbook, again, once you get the workbook and look at it, you may have questions. I don't think so. I think it's pretty straightforward, and I hope will be useful to you. Then the PowerPoint has been totally updated, both visually and the notes section. Again, we're hoping that improvements that will be useful to you. One of the major changes is that we have embedded the indicator slides, or some people talk about them as the light bulb slides, we've actually included them in the workshop PowerPoint. Before, you had to go back and forth between two sets of PowerPoints, and it was fairly cumbersome. And so that's one thing I think that you'll find is really a benefit. There are videos of the interviews. We actually originally had hoped to have some updated ones, and then COVID came to visit, and so we hopefully in the future will be able to do that. One of the things that we have done, though, is edited those videos, and again, I think they'll be more useful. And just in general, the PowerPoint, I think you'll be very excited. It is very visually appealing. One change is at the beginning. There's still a couple of the slides about the history of CQL, but not very many, and you're encouraged not to spend a lot of time on them, because the other thing that is included is it's about a 6-minute animated video of the history of CQL. You can find that on our website as well, but so it's embedded in the PowerPoint, so you don't have to remember all the things to talk about related to CQL. The animated video does that for you. And if you haven't seen that, I think you'll enjoy that. So just to give you a flavor, here are some of the slides to give you a sense about kind of what they look like. We have, you'll see some revisions, kind of repackaging in the section around communication, and especially around doing work interviews with folks who perhaps are not using words to communicate with you. So you'll see some changes a little bit there. I think, again, I hope you'll find them to be improvements. Again, some more examples, and you'll see here, you'll see those indicator slides that are there. Some of you might still have the old slides where that says ceiling instead of floor. And so that is an update for you. And then we added a slide specifically to talk about the type and frequency outcomes. That was certainly in the notes in the previous ones, but just a slide to help facilitate that. This is an example of what it looks like with the slide and then the notes underneath. Some of the examples of different ways that personal outcome measures have impacted people's lives. And then, again, just some examples. As you'll see, there are extensive notes, kind of shares ideas about what you might do to enhance it. As you know, as certified trainers, depending on your group size and your group, you may need to add in some activities or some discussion, and in other groups you're having a hard time fitting it all in, so you might not add in those additional sorts of things. So that's just a peek at the PowerPoint and the slides. And as Megan said, we've got plenty of time for questions at the end, so feel free to be jotting yourself questions, and we'll hopefully be able to answer those after we get through the slides. So then we created what we've called the trainer's agenda, and it's really just the sample agenda with some additional components. It's a really high level overview. It's just a few pages, but it's got some estimated time, some activity references. And so here's an example of a couple of the pages. Again, just something for you to have as a trainer when you're thinking about preparing, but also that day, those days as you're working your way through, just hopefully as an additional help for you. Whereas with the manual or the workbook, we're going to send you the hard copy. Because this is just a few pages, we'll be having you just print these out for yourself. And so you'll see we didn't make them color heavy, so it'll be easy for you to do that. And then we will have, right now, we've sort of talked back and forth about how best to provide resources to you. For right now, what we've landed on is that on our certification page on our website, about 3/4 of the way down, you'll run into the frequently asked questions. And so we've added this frequently asked question about what materials are available for certified trainers conducting POM workshops. And if you click on that, you will then have this listing of the materials that are available specifically for certified trainers. We don't make those available to everyone, but only to those folks who are certified. And so if you are needing those materials, we're going to be sending them to you and showing you how to get them. But down the road, if you lost your link or whatever, this is a place that you can go to and find the link to request those materials be sent to you again. As we go forward, if we discover that there are more resources that we have, we are sharing more amongst the team of all of you who are out doing training, we certainly can create a separate page that on the website, and that may be something we'll do in the future. But for right now, you'll go to the certification page, you'll go to the frequently asked questions, you'll click on that, and then you'll send us an email and we'll verify that you're a certified trainer, and then we'll send you what it is that you need. So the million-dollar question is, how are you going to get all this? And so because there's substantial products in terms of, especially the PowerPoint is very image rich, and so it's a very large document. We don't just email those things. What is going to occur is shortly after this webinar finishes, a survey is going to be sent out to those folks that we currently show as certified trainers in good standing, who your certification is current. And the survey is going to be very simple. It's just got a few questions. It's asking you if you believe that you are a certified trainer in good standing. We will check that when the survey comes in. We're asking you for your name and your mailing address, and also your email, which we obviously have one for you that we're sending. If there's a different one you want to use, that would be a great time to share that with us, because we'll be mailing out the workbook. So we want to make sure we've got the correct physical addresses for folks. And then there is another question that asks, is there another trainer, or are there additional trainers at your organization? So that if that's the case, we can simply do a mailing to the organization with however many of the workbooks that need to go. So that would be more cost effective. In terms of the electronic resources, specifically the PowerPoint, but there's some of those other items that are available to you electronically. We are going to send those, a link out to you for Box. Box is a service like Dropbox. It just is a different service. It's called Box. The link would come to you, and then you'll be able to access those materials and download them for yourself onto your own system, into your own computer. I will tell you that the PowerPoint is large, and so it will take you some time to download. So don't feel like it's not working. Just give yourself a little bit of time to do that, because it does take some time. We are asking that the survey will go out after the webinar. We're asking, it would be really helpful to us if you could complete that survey no later than November 5th. And then we can make sure that materials are getting out to you as quickly as we can. In terms of whether or not you're a certified trainer in good standing, that may be a question in your mind in some cases. So obviously, if your certification is current, you're in good standing. If you have an application in for your recertification, you are in good standing. If the application for certification is in with a request for an extension, you're in good standing. So the only, or I suppose I shouldn't say the only, but the situation where you might not be in good standing is if your certification has lapsed and you have not submitted an application requesting an extension or indicating what you're wanting to do. So if that is your situation, we can certainly help you with that. So that's really, in a nutshell, what we've got for you. Obviously, once you get them and you have a chance to look at the materials and sort of dive into them, I'm guessing you might have some questions, maybe not, because I think it's pretty straightforward. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised when you get them. But that's sort of what we wanted to share in terms of the high-level overview, and we certainly will get to questions in a minute. Since we have you as certified trainers, there's some other information that we wanted to share with you that I think will be useful to you. So wanted to share with you, and some of you have heard this already, we've shared it in different venues. We have created, adapted the materials for the POM workshop to be able to do a virtual POM workshop. We did our first pilot with a Canadian organization in September, and it was very successful. We were very pleased with the outcome. We did learn some things and had wanted to incorporate some of that learning and run a second pilot. We are doing that in the middle of November, and we'll implement the changes we think would be useful based on that first pilot. We'll continue through the second pilot refining those materials, the PowerPoint, the directions, the schedule. And we, as we're doing these pilots, are training our CQL staff as well. And so each time we provide the virtual POM workshop, we'll be having additional CQL staff participating so that we can ensure that our staff are fully trained and ready to go. And we already have organizations, and some of you on the call are probably one of those, are already scheduling in the new year for one of those virtual workshops. Just to give you a sense of that, what we did was break it into modules so that it would be more flexible. And so there are 8 modules. And one of the things that we were curious to look at in the pilot was about the scheduling and how much time people can Zoom and those sorts of things. So right now, the way that we are running the second pilot is that it's a 5-day endeavor, and the Monday, Wednesday, and Friday of that week, or if you, the first, third, and 5th day of the 5 days are predominantly a full day of online work with the group. And then on Tuesday and Thursday, there is no online work. Those days are devoted to people going out and doing the interviews, follow-up interviews, some decision-making sorts of activities. So right now, that's the way that we've scheduled it as we're going to provide the workshop. The setting it up with the modules will enable organizations who may want or need a little different flexibility in the scheduling to have that. And it will certainly allow us, for some of our partners who are in significantly different time zones, for example, you know, for us to do this workshop in Ireland, we would need to spread it over a couple weeks because there's just a small window of hours that work both here and over there. So it helps with that. The plan is, after we complete that second pilot in the middle of November, is to do whatever further refinement that we think is necessary. Make any more changes to the PowerPoint, make any more changes to the schedule, materials, suggestions, all those sorts of things. Once we've had the time to do that, we will then be sending out, releasing materials and directions to certified POM trainers for them to be able to do the virtual workshop within your organization or authorized network. So that's our ultimate goal, is for us to be able to do the virtual POM workshop for organizations that might want that, for you and your organizations to be able to provide the virtual workshop if that is something that is necessary or desirable in the current situation. It also is going to allow us to provide workshops that we, in essence, would host, which will allow individuals from smaller organizations who don't have a need or the financial resources even to do a workshop for their organization. They don't need 12 people trained. So we'll be able to accommodate people who want to become trained and ultimately may want to be certified. So they would be able to join, and we would be charging more in the model of a per seat cost. So we're excited about that it's going to open up the world of POM workshops to folks who in the past, that's been a struggle for them. So we're excited about it. As we are doing the workshop and actually all the virtual training that we're doing, just to let you know, we are doing that in a team. So we always have two staff that helps break up things for the staff, but also for the trainees, the participants. But it's just also crucial to have that second person to help with tech sorts of things. We've included many activities for those of you, and I'm sure most of you have been on Zoom during this time of our life. You know, we're using polls and annotates and breakout rooms and all sorts of things, games. And so it's very, I think, pretty critical that you have two people when you're doing that. So if you're kind of thinking about that, getting excited about doing that at your organization, that's coming soon. So we'll keep you updated with that. Sort of in that same vein or along the same thoughts, in the world we find ourselves in, and it does not appear to be going away anytime soon, the need to do many more things virtually. Some of those things, you know, 9 months ago, we said that we didn't think were doable or that we didn't want to do. We are now have made a decision to move forward, to use our skills that we've now found, and just realizing that we need to move forward in our new normal. So we have not until now offered initial interviewer certification virtually. We are now beginning to do that. And so it will be a virtual coaching day and then a virtual IRR. So that is something brand new that those of you who perhaps have folks in your organization who you've been wanting to get certified and haven't been able to, that's now an option. The other option, again, that we have just made a decision to move forward with is to move through that process of trainer certification in the virtual world. So now that we will have the ability to do a virtual POM workshop, we'll be able to do a virtual coaching and IRR. We will then offer the step 3 and 4, where the trainer candidates would observe CQL and get trainer preparation for doing the virtual POM workshop. And then CQL would observe those trainer candidates conduct a virtual POM workshop. So that is now an option to move forward if you're wanting to get trainer certified. One of the things that, or the question, you know, that comes up, and what we've made some decisions about is, if you are someone who goes through this path and you become certified, you've become certified and you're now probably quite good at doing a virtual POM workshop. Sometime in your life, I hope, you'll want and need to do an in-person POM workshop. And so when life changes again and we have more availability to do that, we would then be providing some assistance to you so that you felt confident in doing the in-person workshop. Okay, and just finishing out our round of conversation about life with COVID-19, I just wanted to remind you about some things that we shared on the certification webinar we did not that long ago. So obviously, I would assume most of you are venturing into the world of virtual POM interviews, and we have an interview tips and guides for that have come out for, and I think Seth's going to send it out now in the chat. So that's on our website and available to you. We are doing virtual IRRs, which we've been actually doing those for quite some time, long before COVID came along. We are also doing what I call virtual IRRs since COVID arrived, where you are virtually doing an interview and we are virtually observing you do that interview. So many of you have had questions, and I appreciate that you go out and ask those questions so that you make plans for yourself about how to meet your trainer requirements during, again, this time where perhaps you don't have certainly even the need or the ability to do POM workshops. You haven't been able to do them in person. We haven't yet provided you with the tools to do them virtually. You may not have staff available to do it anyway because you are all living out day-to-day life in COVID, and we hear from many of you and are very empathetic and appreciative of all that you're doing in that situation. So wanted to share with you what I tell folks when you have approached us about how are you going to meet your requirements. I've encouraged you to really consider some customized training, some 1-hour webinars that you can provide to your staff, that you can provide to the folks you support. Maybe you do those even together. So I'm really encouraging you to look at customized training as a potential way to fit in more of those requirements. You could do extra POM interviews in lieu of the training days and extra continuing education sorts of activities. And so those, it's really become quite individualized. We're all, you know, in this world that we're advocates of being person-centered. Well, we're definitely being person-centered in terms of moving forward with you and helping you meet your requirements. It's still very important to all of us that those people who are POM certified trainers are competent at POM interviewing and at training people, and you know that's the intent of the requirements. So whatever we can do to help you kind of think through that, we're happy to do that. In terms of your recertification, you need to, if you are needing to request an extension because of COVID, you need to submit your application ideally before your expiration date. If your date has expired and passed, please get that application in. What we have been doing for the most part is we have been offering 3-month extensions, and then if people need to revisit that, we talk with them at that time. So let's see, I want to make sure, I did want to share with you that you as a certified trainer are responsible for keeping track of what you've done to fulfill your requirements. So whether that's, you know, some handwritten notes, whether that's a ledger you keep, whether that's a spreadsheet, however you do that, that you keep track of what it is you've done in terms of continuing education, in terms of interviews, in terms of trainings. And you, when you apply for recertification, indicate those numbers to us on the application, which helps us then work with you if you feel like you're not going to be able to fully meet those. And then when our staff are actually doing your inter-rater reliability, they will be asking to review that with you, to see how you're keeping track of that. And another piece about the inter-rater reliability, we've started using the DocuSign platform. And we're, for some of you, you may have experienced that already. We're working out some of the bugs, but we really think it's worth working out the bugs, because when that goes well, you can end up with your certificate a day or two after you've done your IRR versus weeks, later. So when it works well, it's like a miracle. We certainly are continuing to work out some glitches, but I wanted to let you know that is the way that we are processing the paperwork now. I think that's most of what I wanted to share with you. I see we have questions in our Q&A box, and feel free to keep adding those. So one of the questions is, what's the ETA for the virtual workshop materials and directions? Well, I would love to give you a date, and I can't do that. So the workshop will be happening the week of, what is that, the 16th, the middle of November. Obviously, we are very motivated to get those materials together for ourselves and for you. And so we will be working on those as quickly as we can. I don't have a date. So there's a question about a specific virtual platform be required to use the virtual POM process. We have created the workshop using Zoom. We certainly have used, we use Zoom for the actual interactions. We use Teams for managing the documents and sharing documents, and to facilitate with some of the activities. We have made a choice to go with Zoom because it gives us a little more flexibility, although Teams is getting there in terms of some of the activities. So that's something we could certainly talk about, but that's what we're using, is Zoom as the platform for our interaction, Teams very much a part of it for managing documents and that facilitates some of the activities. I think some of you have some very specific questions, so I don't know that I'm going to answer them live. It asks, when there's an initial interviewer, a new interviewer being certified, whether that will be virtually, whether that'll be for 1 or 2 years. All of our certification is intended to be for 2 years. The 1-year certification came into play for those folks who were just simply not able to meet the requirements. And it was a consideration that we gave as a way for folks to not, have to start over or lose certification. And so whenever we're granting certification, it's for 2 years. And then the 1 year may come into play at recertification. There's a question about, are you still required to submit the customized training for approval? And the answer is yes. You need to send that in to us. Most of the time, that's a very quick turnaround. You need to submit the PowerPoint, if that's what you're using, materials, handouts, your agenda, those sorts of things, kind of your intent. You can submit those. One of the questions was, because you submit several? Absolutely. And now, as you get these new trainer materials, you'll have some new updated slides that might be useful to you as well. Are virtual trainer certifications a current option, or is that also being piloted? That is a brand new option. It's not, we won't be going through a pilot. We have to have, obviously, the virtual POM workshop finished to be able to engage in those. But it is an option once the virtual workshop is out there. there to be used. I'm looking at the questions here. A couple of them are pretty specific. So if you submitted a question, and most of you submitted them with your name, so that that's easy for me to follow up with you individually. I see an anonymous question that's kind of a very specific one. And so if you want an answer to that and you don't hear me answer it live, please email me directly and I can do that. Somebody says they've got a POM training scheduled at the beginning of November. Is it okay for them to use the older materials? Absolutely. We're not trying to make your life more miserable. We're actually trying to enhance it. So I totally get that. Having something brand new is probably not going to be the easiest thing to jump into. So yes, absolutely. There's a question about how soon after mid-November will certified trainers be able to do virtual POM trainings. As soon as we can get you the materials and the directions, you'll be able to do those. Can we sit in to see the virtual training CQL does, or will you do another webinar? We absolutely will do a webinar that will give you some insight into the new materials once we've got those. Absolutely. Try to make that as useful as possible. I think we've answered all the questions I can answer. We've still got time if other people have other questions, things that I haven't gotten to. We just want to tell you how much we appreciate all of you, all the things that you're doing in your organization, all the things that are going on for you. And in the midst of all that, you're still focused on really helping people have a quality life and to be engaging with them in a way that's going to do that. I can't tell you how much we appreciate that, and I know they appreciate it. The feedback that we've gotten from folks doing the virtual POM interviews is that the people you support are delighted to do those because it's, you know, another way of interacting with folks. I also believe that it's been very useful to be thinking about training your DSPs together with the folks that you support. I think that is a really fabulous way to think of things. You might, you know, do a personal outcome measure of the month and train on that. You know, there's all kinds of ways that you can do that, all kinds of opportunities. And we've just been delighted as we've been out doing all of our virtual accreditation activities to see all of the creative things that you all have done. It's pretty amazing. So it says, I've got a question here. COVID-19 has affected us, obviously, but as we can enter the residence for the POM conversation with social distancing and other necessary precautions, is this okay to do? Absolutely. While the virtual things are working, we do not believe there is really a substitute for that in-person interactions with people. You learn, as you all know, you learn so many things from the environment. You pick up other cues about what's going on for folks when you might be in their home or their workplace or other situations. You see people interacting with them. So absolutely, if you can do in person, great. That's fabulous. Okay, I don't see any more questions. I don't want to keep all of you longer than we need to. Obviously, you know how to find us, and really encourage you to answer the Survey Monkey that's coming to you so we can get those materials out to you as quickly as possible. And, you know, once you get the materials, if you have questions, please reach out, and we're happy to answer those. And it's helpful to us as well, because if you have the question, perhaps other people have the same questions, and we can send out information that would be useful to everyone. If you're not already linked into the e-community on Facebook, I really encourage you to do that, because you all are wonderful resources to each other with good ideas and tricks of the trade that you come up with. So I encourage you to do that as well. And I think if we don't have any more questions, I think we'll say goodbye for today. I appreciate you taking your time, and look forward to what you think when you get the materials. So I appreciate it, and we'll talk to you soon.